Okay, America, it's time to rise and dine. Like Dixieland Jazz, breakfast gets popular every few years, and now it's in. 3 out of 4 of us have something in the morning. It might be this, with a little of this. It could be what we ate as kids. Food writers call it comfort food. Maybe cold cereal and milk. Look, this guy even pours like a kid. Or it could be a power breakfast. That's when businessmen go to a restaurant and juggle profit margins with scrambled eggs and bacon. If you're a teenager or have the stomach of one, you might try this. It lets you eat and not miss any rush hour traffic. Of course, if you're a health nut, this is the ticket. It's the culinary equivalent of going to confession. You get off scot-free. And then there's brunch in New Orleans.
Great Chefs presents a New Orleans Jazz Brunch, featuring famous Crescent City brunch classics prepared by some of New Orleans' top chefs. Your host, Al Hurt.
Hi, welcome to my hometown. We're at Commander's Palace, one of the city's grand restaurants, and this is where the Jazz Brunch started. During the next hour, we'll visit here and other kitchens to watch some of the city's best chefs cook their specialties. You may even want to try some of the dishes at home. But wherever you enjoy brunch, remember it's more than breakfast. It's a celebration, especially in New Orleans. We have the Superdome, Jackson Square, and Bourbon Street. But if you miss Sunday brunch in New Orleans, you haven't seen or tasted it all. Like the chefs, no two brunches are alike. You can feast on everything from sinful desserts to pasta, from soufflés to oysters. It's convenient, too. You get a month's worth of calories in one meal.
Brunch is kind of a little special time. I mean, it's not a business day generally when people go, and you can have a lovely cocktail, something that you don't use, not used to drinking every day. And then you would go into having just things, the restaurant does things on Sunday we don't do any other day of the week. It's a special time. I mean, this country, we're all so busy all the time. And it's something, when you can just carve out this little time on a Sunday, it's special.
Don't tell my mother I'm living in sin. Don't let the old folks know. Don't tell my twin that I breakfast on gin. He'd never survive the blow.
The poet who wrote that must have spent a little time in New Orleans. If the eye-opener wasn't invented here, it may as well have been. Like a good vaccination, alcohol and breakfast took early on, and eyes have been opening ever since. There are a few standards like the mimosa, champagne and orange juice, the mint julep, mostly mint-flavored bourbon, and for those who choose to breakfast on gin, the famous Ramos Gin Fizz. Hey, let's party.
To make a Ramos Gin Fizz, start off with an egg white. Add a little simple syrup or sugar and water, and a little lemon juice or sour mix. A shot of gin, 5 drops of orange flower water. You can find this at a wine store or a specialty shop. And about 2 ounces of cream. When this was originally created, the bartenders and waiters used to shake this and pass it over their hands to another one waiting in line behind them. At home, you should blend this until it is extremely frothy. And strain and place in a large up glass. The Ramos Gin Fizz.
word brunch is pretty modern, but big, wet breakfasts have been served in New Orleans for 150 years. Food, like almost everything else in town, has been consecrated, and not without reason. The haute cuisine of the 18th century was French cuisine. Since New Orleans was first a French city, could great food be far behind? People have dined elegantly while most of the country foraged for nuts and berries. By 1885, Creole cookbooks were in print, and a new, if confusing, term was born.
And it's important for us to remember that Creole cooking, with all the myths and misconceptions about it, is such a mixture of cultures. You have, of course, the French and Spanish influence, but in this city you could trade with the Indians for spices and herbs mainly, and then the spices that were imported from all over the world, and then your slaves added their knowledge from African, West Indian cuisine. So it's really a total mixture of techniques as well as ingredients and recipes that brings about the really unique Creole cooking.
This is the Herman Grima House in the French Quarter. It's a restored Creole house circa 1830 and includes a working kitchen. It has both an open hearth fire and a beehive oven, which was lavish in that time. Also, given New Orleans' delightful summers, it must have been hell to work in. If a big breakfast was planned, the fires had to be started in the middle of the night. It's a good thing that well-heeled Creoles had slaves to do the cooking.
It wasn't just the servants who went off and made all the food and that was it. The lady of the household really had to actively supervise what was going on. Therefore, you get the combination of preparation of food between the two different traditions, the black tradition and the white or the French tradition and the Spanish tradition, depending on what the household was. In this house, the family was in the main house, and then you had the servants' quarters in a separate building, but they're all right there living together.
The types of dishes that were garnished and put before the guest, the likes of which we haven't seen since, except maybe in a professional chef's competition, they really put out some beautiful work.
The Creoles would have considered their breakfasts modest. I think the rest of us would gag at the quantity of food that they had. There were meat dishes, there were vegetable dishes, there were even hors d'oeuvres for breakfast.
By the turn of the century, everything was swinging. The French Market, the Red Light District, or Storyville, and the busy port of New Orleans. The feel was almost Mediterranean, dirty, indulgent, and exotic. Out of this weird mix comes Madame Begue, a shadowy figure in New Orleans food lore. An immigrant from Bavaria, she married a French butcher named Hippolyte, and they ran a small saloon and second-story restaurant near the market.
He becomes the major domo, the greeter and what have you. She is the cook in the kitchen. And together they serve these meals which take care of the butchers from the French market. And I suppose others who work in the market and so on, they get up very early in the morning in those days because they have this morning rush, 7, 8 o'clock, of providing provisions. And the rush ends by 10 or 11 o'clock, and they're hungry, and they begin to come over to Madame Begue's. It's a rough crowd that she's serving, but they know good food and so on. And gradually, what happens is the swells hear about it, and I'm sure a goodly number of uptown New Orleanians come down here because it becomes very fashionable to go to Madame Begue's on Sunday morning. I believe that this is the beginning of what you can call the late breakfast.
Madame Begue was plausibly the first woman celebrity chef. The Southern Pacific Railroad offered her cookbook for a quarter, and reservations for the single 11 a.m. seating had to be made weeks ahead. The place only held 30, but even after it got trendy, if that applied to a restaurant in 1900, they refused to expand. There were 6 or 7 courses, all washed down with a ton of wine. The guest register is a barometer of the cordial climate of Begue. As one customer admits, "I'm plastered. and another guy from Atlanta throws the towel in altogether. God help us all. Madame Begue died in 1906, but 40-some years later, the breakfast legacy of this Bavarian cook would be transplanted rather successfully by an Irish saloon keeper.
The fame of Begue's breakfast gives the Brennans, I don't know that this is a fact, but gives Owen Brennan, when he starts his restaurant, the idea for breakfast at Brennan's. And that may be part of that tradition that's begun with the Germans, because the French have no tradition of a big breakfast, but the Germans do.
Well, we remember in reading always of the history of New Orleans, way back in the days of Madame Begue, the tradition was after church. New Orleans was a big Catholic city, and after church everybody went to brunch, and that kept on for many, many years, and it seemed to fade away for a while. And when we were trying to get started in the restaurant business, we decided that would be a wonderful tradition to revive, and really got it going with it back a long time ago, back in the very late 40s, early 50s.
New Orleans is still very Catholic and still tradition-bound with food. It's amazing to note the dishes that span the decades. Creole cream cheese, beef daube glacé, that's a fancy hog's head cheese, the king cake, and beignets served in coffee houses like Café du Monde in the French Quarter. Another is Morning Call, now in the suburbs after 104 years in the Quarter. Beignets have been described as Creole donuts, but the texture and taste are unique. They're hardly sinkers. The dough, very soft and pliable, is rolled thin, then cut into squares and deep fried. They're turned and served immediately. Beignets don't hold. They're almost cooked to order at Morning Call. If they aren't served in 15 minutes, they're thrown away. The typical service includes a cup of café au lait, which is half milk and half hot New Orleans chicory coffee.
You're the cream in my coffee, you're the salt in my stew. You will always be my necessity, I'd be lost without you.
Coffee isn't an afterthought in New Orleans, it's a starting point. The Creoles believed it cured everything from heart disease to depression. For the uninitiated, New Orleans coffee can be a startling taste experience. Some think that chicory makes it bitter. In fact, a cup of pure brewed chicory is quite mild with almost a caramel taste. The character of New Orleans coffee comes from the long, dark roast process, not the chicory. For decades, New Orleans have gilded the lily with a drink called Café Brûlot. It's a sort of Creole tea ceremony with a kick. Bob DeVille, Brûlot master of his family, demonstrates a version.
First we go with the cube sugar, then some cinnamon sticks, then we have some cloves, followed by lemon peel, then a little orange peel, and of course the cognac.
Warm the brandy slightly, but be careful in flaming it.
Okay, now, coffee.
And for the finale, add some strong New Orleans coffee.
Voila.
Consider the egg. Perfection in nature, a self-contained universe and source of life. The Chinese bury them, we hunt them, and they're swell at brunch. You can fry them, scramble them, poach them, or make an omelet with them. Madame Begue served an omelet with every meal. When it comes to omelets, it's with inside that counts. With this, it's peppers, onions, and ham in hot butter. Petunias, a tiny French quarter spot, serves an omelet for the cholesterol conscious. It's made with egg whites only. Slightly beaten egg whites are poured into an omelet pan. Herbs and seasonings are sprinkled on. The omelet is flipped and filled with broccoli and mushroom. You can also use asparagus and saute the mushrooms first.
Now, oval plate.
I think of today, we're totally different, you know, with the new cuisine and with the new chefs. We have continues to change. What we used to make the egg, we always used the Holland Russ on as the bottom. Today we create there's no Holland Russ in the house. We make all our own bases. We even use potato base, fish base, the grits, and just make totally different bases for the dishes. And we even have good hash dishes that use as a base for the egg dishes.
Commander's Palace executive chef Emeril Lagasse cooks this egg invention using two New Orleans staples in counterpoint: pickled pork hash with red bean sauce.
In the stock, I'd say for about 2 to 3 hours until it's very tender, like you would do a boil.
Pickled pork is readily available in New Orleans. It's usually a shoulder cut that has been slow cooked, much like corned beef. In this case, Chef Lagasse has used liquid crab boil to season the pork.
You want to cook these until they're translucent or clear and certainly very tender.
Diced celery, green pepper, and onion are sauteed in olive oil to begin the hash. Diced pickled pork is now added.
We'll add this to it, as well as the potatoes.
The diced potatoes have been parboiled. Some of the crab boil liquid is added to the hash.
Now with the potatoes got a good cooking going, now we're going to add a tiny bit of garlic. And then we also want to add 1, maybe 2 small bay leaves. We want some of this flavor.
The hash is taken off the heat briefly and then browned in olive oil in another hotter skillet.
Now we want to quickly saute the hash and get some good color on it, some nice golden color if we can. This is the red bean sauce that we're going to add over the eggs once we put the dish together. Again, red beans, very much part of New Orleans. So the whole beans are cooked down, either flavored with pickled pork. Some people use andouille sausage, some people use tasso, cooked down, and then it's simply just pureed, which is what the sauce is. You want to add a little stock to it, just to kind of get it a nice consistency. Great flavor. Beautiful. 2 beautiful poached eggs.
Brennan's on Royal Street is unconnected with the Commander's Palace branch of the family. It's world famous, and since the 50s has done for egg dishes what Madame Begue did for gluttony, elevated the possibilities. Executive chef Michael Roussel, who grew up at Brennan's, prepares Eggs Ellen. The dish features fresh salmon fillet.
Okay, again, all we're going to do is sprinkle a little pepper on the salmon on each side, because naturally Hollandaise sauce going and you have a little salt in it already. This is another dish that it takes more time to shop for and prepare than actually fix. Okay, at this point, the salmon's cooked. Naturally, it's a little different than the grill, but you can see how nice and flaky it is here. And pick up 2 nice poached eggs. And you can poach your eggs in advance during the dish. Just hold them in a little water at room temperature. Everyone in the city of New Orleans can make a good dish of Hollandaise. So you see how nice, rich this Hollandaise is? Over the eggs. Take a little parsley and a little paprika. And we'll throw in a little lemon for good measure for the person that likes a little lemon on a dish. And that's the egg Ellen done with the salmon.
In New Orleans, we love seafood before they found out it's good for you. Because it's so plentiful, it's been the basis of an awful lot of good dishes. Inventive Seafood is the trademark of Mr. B's Bistro in the French Quarter. It is owned and operated by third-generation Brennan's Ralph and sister Cindy. Chef Gerard Maras cooks a Mr. B's hit, crab cakes and eggs. The crab cakes are started with lump crab meat, diced red and green bell pepper and chopped green onion. Tops only. Add to this mayonnaise and breadcrumbs and 1 egg. Season with a little Louisiana hot sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and salt. Next comes some of Mr. B's Creole seasoning, their own blend of seasoned salt. The crab mixture is formed into patties dipped in flour, egg wash, and breadcrumbs. Crab cakes are sautéed in clarified butter. Note there's an indentation in the middle to hold a poached egg. Presentation will include Mr. B's Creole sauce. This tomato-based sauce will be pureed in a blender or food processor before service.
And then we're going to adjust the seasonings. At that point, after we've cooled it a little bit, we're going to puree it and then bring it back to heat.
Hollandaise sauce begins with beaten, warm egg yolks.
The reason for doing it over a double boiler is just to keep your eggs from cooking too fast. And cooking too fast, they're going to curdle, cook on the sides too much. We want to double its volume approximately. We're going to season with a little bit of salt, a little bit of white pepper, add some chopped chives.
Also the juice of 1 lemon, and the sauce is done. The eggs are poached in simmering water with a little vinegar and salt added for 3 minutes for a soft yolk. From the Fairmont Hotel, Chef Terry Newkirk continues the blue crab theme, but puts it in, not under something. Crab stuffed chicken breasts. The chicken breasts are flattened and seasoned with salt and cayenne pepper. And the stuffing starts with sautéed onion, celery, and lump crab meat.
Mix that in with our mixture. We're going to add again, now we're going to add our green onions. Then we're going to add our breadcrumbs to tighten the mixture up. We're going to add just a little bit of white wine just to give it that moisture and that pleasing taste. And then some chopped parsley.
White wine, parsley, and a little flour complete the stuffing.
Just a little bit of flour, as much as is needed as it calls for in the recipe, just to bind this product together. And if adjustments are necessary, then white wine, heavy cream, any product of that nature would do to help to give it a little bit more moisture if we overdid it on the breadcrumbs.
Stuff the chicken breasts with the crab mixture. Be careful not to use too much. Roll the breast around the stuffing and secure with toothpicks. The stuffed chicken breasts are dusted with the seasoned flour, then sautéed quickly on top of the stove. The chicken will be served with a basic white sauce and sliced mushrooms.
And we'll add our heavy cream, or half and half. If we use half and half, as I did in this recipe, then we'll watch the temperature so that it doesn't boil rapidly. Then we're going to place skillet and all. If it's an oven-ready skillet, without a plastic handle, of course, but we're going to place skillet and all chicken breasts in a 325 to 350 oven for approximately 20 minutes.
The finished dish will be garnished with crawfish tails. The final seafood dish is from the Intercontinental Hotel by executive chef Helmut Susenbach. It's a surprise package holding 3 different fish served with asparagus sauce. The fish packets are enclosed in slices of celery root. It's true celery that is grown for the root rather than the stalk.
And we're going to slice this pretty thin.
The chef has peeled the root and slices it thinly using a mandolin. He would use 3 kinds of fish: salmon, trout, and pike. The chef builds the package with plastic wrap.
We're placing a piece of trout. And here we have some fresh basil leaves which go on top of there. Then the next fish is the salmon. Then we have again basil leaves. We season it again with a little bit salt and pepper. And our last fish item is the pike birch. Again basil. This one we season again with salt and pepper. And then again we are adding celery root.
The chef will top the packet with 2 thin slices of zucchini. Steam the packets for 8 to 10 minutes. The sauce features fresh blanched asparagus.
Okay, now we place the asparagus into a blender. So here.
The processed asparagus is the foundation for a wine and cream sauce.
Now we're going to make the sauce, which is an asparagus cream sauce. Here we have some butter. And we're going to add the chopped shallots to it and let them get just clear.
And now the chef adds champagne. The asparagus mixture is added.
We're going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper by adding some heavy cream, it has to reduce now until it becomes like a cream sauce. We're going to place the sauce on the plate.
The plastic wrap is removed just before service. Blanched asparagus completes the presentation.
Fish, seafood has always been popular. Even as early as the 1830s, you had different markets around the city where you could buy vegetables and meat and fish, and people would go to those almost daily without refrigeration. So that you've got game that they were shooting straight out of the air and in the forest that was surrounding New Orleans.
Folks in Louisiana believe that almost everything that lives is edible, including alligator and armadillo. There was always abundant wildlife, and many of the old recipes, especially with duck, are still used. From the Windsor Court Hotel, executive chef Kevin Graham offers an unusual creation, lacquered duck.
1 4 to 5 pound duck. This has got to be done the night before. You cannot do this the same day. Rub down with a heavy kosher salt. Rub the salt well into the duck. With the duck well salted, we hang the duck overnight. And the draining of the duck, because the salt helps the duck drain, we make an incision in the Pope's nose, and this helps the fluid drain out of the duck.
The ducks can also be drained overnight on a wire rack in the refrigerator. The salt is then rinsed from the duck.
Remove any excess fat from inside the duck, but the most important thing is to remove the salt, because the salt has now done its job, which is basically pulling the moisture out of the flesh.
The duck is trimmed of fat and goes into a gallon of water and a pint of honey, brought to a rolling boil.
Into this, we place the duck for approximately 2 minutes. After 2 minutes in the water, drain the duck onto a wired roasting rack. And then into a 450 degree oven. On 450 degrees for 30 minutes, and then we drop the temperature down to 300 degrees and cook for a further 45 minutes.
The duck dressing begins with chopped ginger root.
The longer this sits, the better it gets. Mustard, oil, the vinegar, and the honey. This we just whip together. And it says to let sit for 20 minutes, but you can let this sit while the duck's cooking. After the 20 minutes duration, strain the dressing and let it sit at room temperature. After the additional 45 minutes, the duck should be ready to be removed from the oven and have the appearance of lacquer. It looks burnt, but I guarantee you it's not.
duck is served on watercress.
Remove the legs, or one leg. Take off one breast. Remove the bones from the duck legs. Slice the meat. There you go. Lay the leg meat on the stems. Then we slice the breast into 4 pieces. Lay the breast over the leg meat. Separate. For garnish, we use a little julienne of peppers and sesame seeds. But before, you glaze the meat with the dressing. The black sesame and the white sesame and the little peppers. And that is lacquer duck with ginger.
Chef Felix Sturmer continues the game motif from his kitchen at the Western Canal Place Hotel. It's an elegant rabbit terrine. Chef Sturmer begins by butchering 2 whole rabbits, which will be about 1.5 pounds of meat. This is enough for 2 terrines.
And the loin.
The rabbit is trimmed of silver skin. It is then combined with an equal amount of lean pork cut into cubes. Chef Sturmer will marinate the meats overnight. He seasons with salt and white pepper before adding Madeira wine.
And then the Madeira. And the Armagnac.
Armagnac is an expensive brandy.
Okay, and this should be marinated, as I said, for 24 hours.
Rabbit carcasses are chopped into small pieces which will be browned for the rabbit stock, an important flavor factor in the pate. Okay. Brown the bones on top of the stove in a little oil. Onion, carrot, celery, half a green apple, and garlic are added to the bones.
Before the vegetable is added, lightly brown. It's very important to get a good color to it for the flavor.
Herbs and spices are added, and then a gallon of water.
The gallon of water, which would then has to be reduced again to about a quart before we strain it. If you go too far down, it will be very difficult to strain out because there is no liquid. So we will be quart left, and then this quart is reduced down to about a cup.
After the meat is marinated overnight, grind twice with a fine blade. Reserve the liquid. It will be used to flavor the pate. Garnish includes diced ham, diced fatback pork, and truffles, which are optional. Also canned peppercorns. The reduced rabbit stock and the marinade are also used.
Now adding our cream, garnishes, reduction, and marinating liquid should be done over ice so it keeps cold at all the time, and the meat will absorb much better the liquids. Okay, so we start off with the liquid, the marinating liquid, a little bit at a time. As we add the whipping cream, we will realize that this mixture is thickening quite rapidly. Okay, so at that point all the liquids and the cream is mixed in and well worked in. We can add our garnish, peppercorns, ham, black fat and truffles.
Line the terrine with thin strips of pork fat and spoon in the pate mixture.
Pressing it in evenly.
Cover the top with fat.
Okay. Setting it in a 2 to 3 inch deep hotel pan, any kind of container suitable, large enough. Adding some hot water, about an inch high, a little bit more, and putting it in the oven at 350 degree. Cooking it, I would say it takes about an hour and 15 minutes, and the inside temperature should reach not more than 140, 145.
Chill the pate overnight, slice thinly, and serve with the classic Cumberland sauce.
About a half an inch thick. The sauce, after it's chilled overnight, will have this consistency, and we just touch up one side of the terrine.
Louis Armstrong did a tune called All That Meat and No Potatoes, and man, that's good enough for me. It's time for the meat course. Chef Andrea Apuzzo's Metri restaurant offers an elaborate brunch that taps his Italian roots. Watch how the chef uses meat in one of his favorites, lasagna. The assembly begins with alternate layers of fresh pasta sheets, tomato sauce, and 3 kinds of Italian cheese, mozzarella, parmesan, and ricotta. Instead of the traditional ground meat, Italian meatballs are used.
And we take a little tomato sauce, light tomato basil sauce, which is one of the most important things, not too heavy. Spread them around some Italian meatballs. And the meatballs also is very easy to do it. It's very simple. We take some ground beef and we toss together with imported Parmesan cheese from Italy. We take some Italian chopped parsley, oregano, basil, chopped onion, chopped garlic, and we mix together. We put a nice egg yolk in there just to make a little tied up liaison, and we bake them in the oven for 450 degrees for about 10 minutes.
Parboiled chopped spinach is added, and make sure the spinach has been well drained. And finally, a tablespoon each of fresh chopped basil and oregano go on before the next layer is started.
It's much better.
For the top layer, tomato sauce, parmesan, and mozzarella only.
And what we do here, we're going to add a little touch of fresh mock basil and oregano on the top.
The lasagna bakes in a pan of hot water for 30 minutes at 450 degrees. Let the finished lasagna sit for 20 minutes before serving.
And it's a beautiful, now we're going to get them out. It's a beautiful lasagna, and we're going to put it in a nice, beautiful plate.
The chef turns pure New Orleans now with a veal entree, grillades, and grits. The key to this classic is the sauce, which begins with sauteed onions, red and green bell pepper, celery, and chopped garlic.
In the meantime, we're going to add a little pinch of red crushed pepper. Just up to you if you like, it's optional, to give a little touch of more kick to it.
Add 1 tablespoon tomato paste.
nice and hot, we're going to add 1 cup of dry white wine. Not too sweet, nice and dry.
The sauce should come to a boil and reduced by about a half. After the reduction, the chef adds crushed Italian plum tomatoes with the juice.
Of tomato, Italian plum tomato with the juice, crushed, chopped up in puree. Basil,
Fresh herbs, Italian parsley, basil, and oregano are added.
1 tablespoon of Italian parsley, 1 tablespoon of beautiful fresh chopped basil, and 1 tablespoon also this wonderful oregano. 4 drops Tabasco, and about ½ teaspoon.
The sauce is finished with Tabasco and Worcestershire sauce, then simmered for about a half hour. The grillades are thin veal scallops, seasoned with salt and pepper and sautéed very quickly in olive oil.
And the veal, it won't take too long to be cooked. Actually, it keeps nice and moist. 1 minute on each side of the veal. We turn around on the other side, cook the other side for 1 minute.
The finished grillades are simmered briefly in the sauce before presentation. Here's our own southern staple, grits. Some might think they're tasteless, but think how they'll taste when they soak up that creole sauce. If you're in the mood for a challenge, try lamb with wild mushrooms. It's an impressive presentation prepared by Chef Patrick Granito of the Meridian Hotel. Chef Patrick begins by trimming a whole rack of lamb and Frenching the bones. The chops are cut and seared very quickly in hot butter and olive oil. The lamb is taken off the fire and drained. Meanwhile, a wild mushroom mixture begins with sautéed shallots and garlic. The first of the wild mushrooms is trompette de l'amour. These particular mushrooms will take longer to cook than the cèpe and pleurot. Mushrooms are seasoned with salt, pepper, and a little white wine. Chef Patrick now begins sautéing the cèpe and pleurot. He points out that any combination of available wild mushrooms are fine for this dish. And after all the mushrooms are cooked, they are drained thoroughly. The pans used to cook the mushrooms are deglazed with heavy cream, and the mushroom mixture is returned to the pans. Fresh bread croutons are sautéed, then combined with the mushroom mixture. This leads to the assembly of the elegant lamb entree. Top blanched spinach leaves with some of the mushroom mixture, then wrap the chops. The whole package is wrapped with caul fat, which will not only baste the chop, but help keep its shape. Preparation of the chops to this point can be completed the day before service. To complete the dish, wrap the exposed bone in foil and roast in a 450-degree oven for 10 minutes. The chops will be presented with fried sliced potato simmered in lamb stock. the foil just before presentation. Artistic pastries and complicated desserts are often the centerpieces of a brunch. Of course, many are only practical in restaurants, but a few are within the reach of home cooks. For example, at Petunia's, they serve a huge apple-filled crepe. The scale in the home kitchen may be smaller, but the cooking principles will translate. Margaret Pollard begins by pouring off the batter before putting the pan over heat. One of Petunia's favorite crepe fillings is a rum-spiked apple and cinnamon mixture cooked down to syrupy consistency and enveloped in the crepe. Finally, Amaryl Lagasse from Commander's Palace plays a variation on Bananas Foster with his own banana cobbler.
We're going to make a banana cobbler, New Orleans style, dry surface, basic pie dough, 3-2-1 method. Want a little bit of flour that we want to work the pie dough. You want to get it really under 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to line the bottom.
For the sauce, use both brown and white sugar and the melted butter.
You want to add the sugar. Now, I want to add some liqueur. As it begins to start caramelizing, we're going to add a little bit of banana. A little bit of dark rum. We add a tiny bit of cinnamon. Very little nutmeg. Very, very little. You could add raisins. You could do this with apples, pears, etc. We're using bananas.
The bananas and sauce go into the unbaked shell.
You want to make sure that the edges are all together. And then we'll just trim it. We want to bake it about 375 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. We're going to use a little bit of our homemade vanilla ice cream.
There goes my diet. You know, there's an old saying in New Orleans, once you taste the waters of the Mississippi, you'll be back. Never mind oil spills and better living through chemistry. If you taste this stuff, you might not leave at all. I hope you've gotten some ideas from our party. Just remember, when you throw your own New Orleans Jazz Brunch, don't leave out the main ingredient, fun. I'm Al Hurt. Thanks for watching.
If you would like a video transcript of this show, send a check to the address on your screen or call 1-800-527-9378. The cost is $14.95 plus $3.95 shipping and handling.